Hi everyone, welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's community talk show. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and today on our show we have Roland Boyden. Roland has worked at BCTV for over 12 years. He's been the production manager since 2011, and he is going to be leaving us soon, so this is a very poignant show for us. And over the last few weeks, knowing that Roland is going to be leaving, there's been a little talk in the hallways saying, oh my God, what are you going to do without him? So we will find out. It will be sad. I'm sure we'll be fine, and it's exciting for Roland. So welcome, Roland.
Thanks for having me.
Sorry for that introduction. You knew it wasn't coming. Yeah. I couldn't resist, though. We had to find a way. Roland, you were born and raised in Marlboro, Vermont. Teeny tiny little town, middle of nowhere, right? What was that like for you, being in that kind of rarefied academic atmosphere?
It was great. I loved it. I got to spend a lot of my childhood outside, got to run around in the woods, and I got to be on campus. So I grew up just a few minutes. I usually tell people it was a 10-minute walk, but a 2-minute bike ride. So very close for a youngster to the Marlboro College campus, where I had a lot of family ties. Yes. And so I spent a lot of my childhood running around there, hanging out in the library, hiding stuff under the bricks in the fireplace, and going to the coffee shop. And a lot of my fond childhood memories are from there. Yeah.
Do you have kids your age there too?
Yeah, there was a little gang of townies, as we always referred to ourselves. Got to ride our bicycles there, stash them, and then run around the campus like hooligans.
And you do have family ties there, so can you tell us about that?
Sure, yeah. My grandfather on my mother's side, Roland William Boyden II, me being Roland William Boyden III, he was among the founding group that put the college together. He had attended and then taught at Black Mountain College, which is a very progressive, small liberal arts college in North Carolina. Yep. And when that closed, started looking for a way to recreate that academic setting. And with a group of other folks, was able to purchase that farm property that Marlboro College sits on and turn it into a small liberal arts school that's still going today. Yeah,
and still going strong. Being in that kind of an environment, like you said, you were outside a lot, knowing what you've done, in the past 12 or 13 years, or since high school at least, were you a visual kid?
More so than the visual side of it, it was figuring out how to do stuff by, building forts and swinging a hammer and climbing a tree and that kind of stuff. So that getting hands-on with stuff was really where I sort of did a lot of my learning. Yeah. And some of that carried over into this tech-fueled world here at BCTV. Just, I would say, we fix things here by poking at it until something changes and work backwards and see what works. So. It's not a lot fancier than that or more technical than that.
And you went to Marlboro Elementary.
I did,
which has such a great reputation, and that was through 8th grade?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a deserved reputation for sure. They have some incredible teachers. I had a lot of teachers that really challenged the critical thinking abilities of all their students, and I definitely felt like I was a part of that. Just got taught how to be a critical thinker and how to never take anything that was presented in front of me for granted. It's by the time you get to be an 8th grader there, it's a little it's ready to move on. Yeah. After my 8th grade class was 8 kids, 6 of which I'd been with since somewhere between kindergarten and 3rd grade. So it's a pretty small group.
Yes.
So it gets a little intense, that very small community. Everybody knows everybody and knows what everybody's doing. And But for the time that I was there, I enjoyed it. I had some really wonderful teachers, and they have a huge woods on the school campus, so I spent a lot of my middle of the day recess there, deep in the woods as well. So to have that be folded into the academic experience was great too.
Yeah.
So.
Having a graduating class of 8 is kind of remarkable, even in Vermont, right?
Yeah.
First couple years in high school, what were you drawn to?
I was pretty drawn to film.
You were?
Yep. And they have a wonderful film program, so by the time, and I had just been experimenting on my own for years and years with a tiny little camcorder and a group of friends, but by the time I got to my junior year, they had a pretty dynamic film program as part of the Career Center that I was able to get into and do a lot of work there. I think I took like 24 credits worth or something like that, so a lot of spent basically half my time from my junior year out there working with Michelle Moise, who has a program there in the Career Center, and that became a dominating thing I was doing. I was a pretty sports-driven kid, but when I got to high school, the daily demands and the structure of the JV and varsity sports teams was not where I was, the headspace I was at, and so I sort of drifted away from that avenue, and this became a lot of freedom. I think like the second half of my junior year, we were given a budget and 2 full blocks of classwork to make 1 feature-length film for the whole course of the whole year.
Wow.
And get to, obviously under some supervision, but get to figure out how to budget that time, how much time to spend writing the script, how much time to spend in production and finding locations and casting actors. And that was, I left school because at that point the digital filmmaking classroom was off campus. It was in the cotton mill. So I left school halfway through the day at like 11:45 and then didn't have to come back, and I could spend the rest of the afternoon working on the film and on the project. So that freedom was really appealing, definitely.
That's like an internship.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was before it was college, high school to college curriculum started coming in, right?
I believe so,
yeah. I think it was. So what did you produce? What kind of films?
So we, that year that we had the grant to make the feature-length film, we made a film, hour and 6-minute film called Kiley Rottweiler and the Hang-Around Kid. And I think we might even see a picture of me with I had a lot of poofy hair in my eyes, and it was very angsty and dramatic and philosophical and brooding. So it's funny to look back on now.
Have you seen it? Have you looked at it lately?
It's been a few years, but I guess maybe 3 or 4 years ago I made myself sit down and watch it again. And
how'd that go?
it was better than I expected.
That's
I was
good.
expecting to be horrified. It's hard to watch yourself. You know this. You get to sit and edit these conversations you have. It's can be really difficult to see yourself
sure
for
can.
prolonged periods of time. There's just little mannerisms we don't really realize we're doing until we see them on loop and repeat over and over. But no, there were a lot of the things that we set out to accomplish with the tone of the story and the characters we delivered on. It was, and I wrote a script that would have yielded like a 3.5-hour movie initially that then had to get cut to 1 hour and 6 minutes. And because I was too emotionally invested to really cut it down, that got turned over to the rest of the group to hack the script apart, and I had to just let them do what they did, which was a great learning experience.
And difficult.
Yes, yeah. But even in that, and I was really worried that the pacing of the film, my memory from that time, having not seen it after we did it for years, was that the pacing had kind of been disrupted by that. But in watching it, I don't know that anything longer than 1 hour and 6 minutes would have been any good. So I think it actually worked out pretty well. And there's some cool performances in it. My 7th and 8th grade teacher from Marlboro, Tim Hayes, who was my math and social studies teacher at the Marlboro Elementary School, was in it. He agreed to be in it, and he's just fantastic.
Really?
He plays this sort of semi-father figure type that appears to help guide the way, and he just spot on. So that was really fun to see
Yeah.
his performance.
You were talking about writing the script. So were you also liking writing? Was writing part of what you got into in high school?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I had a couple of teachers that really helped push that forward. Sue Boardman in particular is a teacher at the high school that just kind of played the perfect mix of mentor / devil's advocate. Really was pretty tough on me, pushed me. And I had done the previous semester before that opportunity to make the film with a grant, I had done a independent full class worth independent project with her writing a script. And so I'd gotten that experience there and really kind of realized how much I loved writing and how much I loved screenwriting. And although I had a full semester to write a screenplay for that independent project, and then when it came to this project, I had like less than a month because we wanted to get the movie rolling.
Right.
And ended up somehow convinced my parents to let me take a full week off from school and just sit in my room all day and try and finish the script. Which, is partly probably why I wrote such a long, overly long script.
Still do writing at all?
I do, yeah. I try and get a script of some sort out I try and do at least one that I feel like I could do, could either make or something every year. But in theory, more than that. But
yeah, and so it's specifically more script writing than straight novel writing or prose or anything.
Yes, although I'm a huge fan of the sort of personal essay, reflective essay. So just as a consumer on that side.
Yeah.
But yeah, for writing.
Yeah. And what about acting? Did you do any acting?
That was sort of the last acting experience I had being in high school, and I kind of identified that wasn't where my creative drive was on the acting side. There's some other ways that I wound up in front of the camera again since then in a very different capacity, but
yeah, we're going to talk about that.
But that experience did sort of tell me that that was not the part that I was most intrigued by. Being an actor myself, I think the craft of acting and the concept of acting and how you deliver to people a character that they can really relate to that isn't the actual person you are is really interesting. So,
and if you know a little bit about it and then you start looking at it, which I'm sure you do with filmmaking as well, you pick up all kinds of things and really admire people who really get good at what they do.
Yep. Yeah. And I do think it's a concept where you can have the cheesiest script in the world, but if you have an actor who can pull people in, it's engaging. And you can have the most dynamic, amazing, original screenplay in the world, and if you don't have actors that engage people, you really miss out. So.
Well, on those projects where you worked with people in high school, did you enjoy that kind of team effort?
Yeah, I mean, it was fraught with drama and conflict, but I learned a lot from it. I mean, I count myself as being pretty fortunate that a lot of my childhood I got given leeway to just work out my own conflicts. Certainly as a kid, getting to run around all day with my friends and fight with them all the time and have to sort out allegiances and mend fences and things. And for this project too, I learned a lot about the collaboration that it takes to make a film. And it's very easy to say like, well, I wrote this script, I have this vision, it's in my head, this is how I want it to be. But the reality is anything with film is it's extremely collaborative, deeply collaborative, and if you can't unload some of that onto and just have a trust factor where you trust other people to make decisions around the project as well, and I'll engage in it. So, it certainly didn't turn me off to it. I think I had days where I came home fuming and pacing, and talking about the script getting cut in half. There were scenes I loved that got cut. And so in the moment, I think I was I had my moments. But I think I was a handful to manage too. If you asked the producer of the film, who became a pretty good friend of mine, but she was the one in charge of managing everybody's emotions, I tended to fly off the handle really quickly around a lot of the concepts. And
was she a peer?
So she went to high school with me, and she was given the unenviable task of being the sort of cat herder.
I would think,
it.
yeah. That's tricky when you're all kids together in school. Yeah.
Yep. She had the composition for it. She was fearless and
Bulletproof.
yes, as you have to be. We were all scared of her in the end, which is I think partly what it takes. She became a great friend of mine, but she knew how to whip people into shape. So, which you really need for it's one of the unsung parts of the production process. Is just the person that makes sure things actually happen.
Yeah.
And can be very separate from the creative process.
Right.
Where you're thinking of characters and motivations and things, and more thinking about how do you actually get a location, how do you actually get people there in time, what are they going to eat, how long are you going to stay there, what those kinds of things.
That's a really good segue into getting you to BCTV.
Yes,
right?
When the film premiered, we got to show it at the Latches. Local filmmaker Tim Wessel, who owns Vermont Films, came looking for a part-time editor just for the summer to help him, and brought me on to do some work with him. I actually worked for him for years part-time, but he was also on the board at BCTV, and there was a position open there, and he recommended that I come to BCTV as well. And it was 20 hours a week when I started. I was doing a lot of inventory. They brought me on to go through and find all the serial numbers on every piece of equipment and fill it all into an Excel sheet, and then there was talk that maybe once that was done, that might be the end of the position, but they weren't sure. Core had just been hired right around the same time I was hired, I think even within a week or something, a week before I had been hired. Core being for those who don't know, the executive director of BCTV. The position turned into a lasting position. And then in 2011 became full-time, and it's been full-time, at least full-time.
At least full-time, I was going to say, yeah.
It's kind of a lifestyle as much as it is a job.
You're right. Yeah, Roland is always on the move. I've never seen him not move. In fact, this is the longest I've ever seen him sit. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And not only that, but as you say, you're doing a million different things. And what's remarkable is that, and this is something that we all have noticed and talked about, is that Roland, and I'm going to embarrass him, what the hell, but he always keeps us cool. He is always so patient. He never rolls his eyes, which is saying a lot, and just always has good humor about everything. So that's saying a lot as well as part of being a good producer, because you've got so many moving parts going on, like my trees, for instance. They're always moving. And so one of the things that you did, I don't know if it was in the first few years or not, was you were doing the news show on BCTV, 545 Live.
That's right. It's actually, that began in 2011, around the time also that I became the production manager. But it began as a volunteer effort, so I was just doing it on my own time because I thought it would be interesting. And so, when I started, I was doing 4 15-minute news broadcasts a week, every day except Tuesday. I would put on a suit and a tie and a pocket square, and I made a couple of teleprompters out of some banker's boxes and $3 sheets of glass from Brown & Roberts. And some old,
how did they roll?
I just had a little laptop that was had a piece of software on it that inverted the image to get the teleprompter to actually roll the words on the screen. It has to be flipped upside down and backwards. And so I found somebody had written a little piece of software online, and realized I could write a whole elaborate prose-heavy, alliteration-packed, over-the-top news script and read it out of the cardboard box, looking right at the camera.
That is so great.
And I learned a lot doing that too. I mean, that became, I did all the writing for it for a long time, and I got really into watching other newscasts and watching the opening and closing monologues for different network shows. And but I also created a news desk for myself and did all the wiring for that, and I was really wanted to have cool graphics that fly across the screen and things like that. So it was definitely a labor of love for a long time, and it took off enough that Core greenlit about 5 hours a week to put into it, and then we started bringing on interns from the high school to help me, and I get some fabulous people along the way, and so it really picked up steam. And,
great.
and we were able to bring a lot of the volunteers into it too. So we had people that were would be out filming some kind of event and then see that there was some newsworthy thing happening.
Something local going on,
We had a stable of producers who were enthusiastically running around getting the latest news content.
And feeding them to you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I would come in with SD cards and handwritten notes and things for me. They're like, the tractor trailer jackknifed on High Street or something like that.
That's kind of exciting.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun, absolutely.
So how was news writing compared to all the other kind of writing you've been doing?
It's totally different, but I loved it. It's really, I had to highlight the conciseness, if that's the right, had to be concise. And so the concept of getting as much information across in as few words as possible while still giving it, I always wanted it to have a voice. I didn't want it to be completely passive. I wanted it to be in my own voice, my own style. But to have to try and really, the whole show every time was 15 minutes long. We try to do 6 or 7 stories, and that really means you have to be on point.
You have to
There's not
deliver.
a lot of rambling, yes. But I also find that it's still a story. So every story still has sort of an antagonist and a protagonist, and you're still sort of following those concepts of storytelling, even with the goal of being as truly objective as possible. That's I think sometimes people forget that being completely neutral and being completely objective are totally different. So you can be objective and write a story, but that doesn't mean that you are completely neutral in how you deliver it. There's still a story to be told, even if you are trying to come at it as objectively as possible.
It's a discipline. It's a real discipline. Did you have role models?
I particularly liked Dan Rather. So at the time in 2011 when I was working on that, I had been in a stint of watching just a lot of 60 Minutes, and there's a great Al Pacino film where Christopher Plummer plays Dan Rather called The Insider, about them exposing the dangers of smoking. It's directed by Michael Mann. It's a great film, but it was a very accurate and true representation, I think, of an unglamorous representation of what being and doing the news was like. I had some other, as far as writers go, there's a sports writer named Rachel Nichols who does a show for the NBA, and she writes these incredible opening monologues. She's one of the best writers I've ever seen, and she does her own writing. And she has all these former pro basketball players on the set with her, but every show starts with a monologue looking right at the camera, this beautiful prose about the nature of sports, and she always ties it into human nature. And I watched a lot of her, they're all on YouTube, so I watched hundreds of her monologues and tried to pick up on some of the just the stylistic choices around wordplay and things like that.
So that could be in your future in some way.
We'll see.
You're kind of attracted to it.
Yes. Yeah.
In the midst of all of working here at BCTV and production and everything, you've also done some teaching. So you've worked with kids of different ages, right? How's that? How do you like that?
Yes. I mean, been all the way from kids all the way up to, full age gamut here at BCTV. I love it. Not sure I have any idea what I'm doing still as a teacher, but it's as much a learning process for me as anything. So I think at some point I kind of realized that it was just a mutual learning process, and if I approached it that way, that it was just like a group of us in the edit room all figuring out how to get a project done, and not me specifically being the one to always have to show people, but just a group effort. I don't know, that fostered an energy in me that was a part of something. And part of what I really love about BCTV and about public access is just that, you mentioned the variety of different things we do, but there's just a huge variety of personalities and show types and different stories that are being told and created here. And to get to have some hand in all of them in some way, whether it's just helping with some of the editing or being around for the production part of it, is, I think, really exciting, because they're just the kinds of shows that I might never come across otherwise.
Right.
So,
and that's another thing about public access TV, in terms of it being our democratic media and having all kinds of different shows. And it seems like BCTV has had so many new and different shows on in the last couple years, things that are appealing to a wider audience, I think, for one, and hopefully more and more people tuning in, even though we don't have the Nielsen numbers.
I think it's in this age of sort of vertical integration for national media too. I think it's become a place where people are starting to look for, whether it's news or just for local. I think that we're kind of rolling into an era where people are appreciating even more the impact that just being locally engaged has,
Right.
whether that's local politics or just community efforts, what's going on in your
Right.
community. And a lot of what we do at BCTV is kind of a community showcase. It's whether it's event, covering. There's so many amazing authors and lecturers and different events that are going on here. There's some amazing arts and music, and those things all find their way, not all, but a lot of those find their way onto BCTV. And then there's just a lot of it is storytelling. And one thing I appreciate about this show, having been kind of behind the scenes for some of it, on the other side of it is just how much of it is people telling their stories and just getting to I know for me, just getting to talk with you ahead of time and reflect on the show, it's just a lot of thinking about things that had happened to me that I hadn't given myself a lot of license to think about. So
that's good. That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't have to call in any psychiatrists afterwards.
That's right.
So Roland, after all your years here at BCTV and all of the things that you've done here, you've obviously seen it change a lot, which we talked about a little bit, but where do you see it headed?
I think its place in the community is just going to grow. I mean, I think it's really poised to kind of become, and we joke a lot here that we're sort of one of Brattleboro's best kept secrets, or there's the secret is that there's a TV station in Brattleboro, but I see that really changing as time moves ahead of here. I think there are just more and more local organizations and groups and individuals that are really realizing how to utilize it in a mutually beneficial way.
Yeah.
But I think there's been a really great period of innovation here too. We've seen a lot of the innovations in technology come to us, but we've also really tried to sort of just figure out how to use those new technologies and new ideas to make it more and more accessible to people. And that's one of my favorite parts about it, is just that we're able to sort of help people in a way. I always tell people that you really don't have to identify as a techie or as an artist to do this stuff. You can, if you think you might have an idea that whether you think it's of interest to everybody or just to yourself, come in and create it and make it and see what happens. And generally the results are positive. And I think, Core at the helm here is an innovator, and she's her, I think, most prized trait in her staff and in the organization is being adaptable and changing and moving, always thinking in terms of moving forward and how to expand and improve. And she's paid great attention to that in thinking about what's next for the station. So I'm kind of excited to see it from the outside.
Yeah, you can tune in.
It's being here as much as I am and kind of in the nitty gritty and the details as much as I am on a daily basis, just keeping things running. It's a lot of which cable has failed and plugging and unplugging. And I think I'll enjoy popping on the website every so often and just seeing what new shows are being produced and who's making what as an outsider with a little bit more of that big picture perspective. So I'm very curious to see what happens next.
Yeah, that's
I'm excited
great.
for it.
Roland, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure
this is
having
great.
you on.
Get to be on this side of it.
It's been a pleasure working with you.
Yes.
Yeah, I really loved it, and you've been so helpful. So thank you. Thanks to all of you for joining in, and we're glad that you're out there. We're glad that you are watching and keeping up with the episodes. And thanks again to Roland for all that he does. And we'll see you next time on Here We Are.